Wonderkids have existed throughout football's history. A teenage player bursts onto the football scene and shows signs of having world-class potential. Pelé at the 1958 World Cup, Rooney scoring that screamer against Arsenal for Everton in 2002, and Messi scoring his first goal with a chip against Albacete in 2005. But who was the first Wonderkid? He started his career at just 7 years old. He was a superstar striker who also played as a goalkeeper. He was a professional musician. He was sold for a record transfer fee in controversial circumstances. He still holds scoring records for Blackburn and Everton, and he was banned from football for months, and it all happened in a career that spanned only 8 years. Remember the name Jack Southworth. The third oldest of 9 children, Jack Southworth was born December 29, 1866 in Blackburn, Lancashire. At just 7 years old, he helped form a junior football club called Inkerman Rangers, which is named after the street that his family lived on. He then played for Brookhouse Perseverance, a team considered a feeder club for Blackburn Olympic. And at 16 years old, he joined Olympic and scored 5 goals in a Lancashire Cup game against Leigh, and he was part of the team that reached the semi-final of the FA Cup in the 83-84 season at just 17 years of age. Around this time, Blackburn Rovers became the main team from Blackburn, and Southworth was offered a place by Blackburn Rovers. Southworth, though, declined and instead made guest appearances for Higher Walton, Accrington and Vale of Loon. And it was actually during this time he suffered career-threatening knee injuries, so he took time out of football to focus on his music career. So with his job as a violinist, he moved to Chester and was actually signed by Chester FC as a goalkeeper in 1885, a position that he had previously played for Olympic since his knee injuries. But before Christmas 1886, he was back as a centre forward for Olympic, and it was this move that triggered his ban from football. In the 85-86 season, he was signed as a professional for Chester, but he still went and played the first FA Cup round match for Blackburn Olympic. The FA inquiry found Southworth guilty, and he was banned for 4 months. After a brief but controversial return to Olympic, he finally joined Blackburn Rovers in 1887. 1888 saw the creation of the Football League, and a 19-year-old Southworth starred as striker for Blackburn Rovers. He scored on his debut in a 10-goal thriller against Accrington, and his debut Football League season finished with 16 goals in 21 games, as well as 5 cup goals. He was the joint 4th top scorer in the league. He got an England call-up in 1889 and scored in the 4-1 victory over Wales, but he would only play 3 times for England and score 3 goals, which is surprising considering his reputation and skill in the game, but his limited international appearances are likely due to his club Blackburn Rovers vetoing his participation, a power clubs had at that time in the game. The next season saw Southworth hit 4 goals in a game twice as Blackburn finished 3rd. He also scored the crucial goal in the FA Cup semi-final against Wolves, which took them to the final against Sheffield Wednesday, where Rovers would romp to a 6-1 victory, with Southworth getting on the score sheet. In the 1890-91 season, Southworth opened the season with a hat-trick against Derby County and would grab 5 hat-tricks that season and finish as the league's top scorer with 26 goals, as well as helping Rovers to another FA Cup title with a 3-1 win over Notts County. The following season, Blackburn Rovers moved to Ewood Park, and for the next 2 seasons they finished a disappointing 9th twice. In the second of those seasons, Southworth scored 10 goals in 23 games, a low return by his standards. By this point, he was only 26 years old, and he had scored 97 goals in 108 league games, as well as 24 goals in 24 games in the FA Cup. As you can imagine, he was a player in demand for some years, but he was reluctant to leave his hometown, as well as his music career being based in the Northwest. But after 2 disappointing seasons and a delay to contract negotiations, clubs were on high alert. In came Everton, who 3 years prior were the champions of England and had just finished 3rd. Liverpool as a city was also attractive for Southworth, as it was still in the Northwest and Liverpool would be a great city to be in for his musical career. Rovers returned with an offer of £3 a week, a £10 bonus and a £20 transfer release clause. Everton then asked for first option on Southworth in case he did want to leave. At this time, clubs mainly had the power over players' transfer moves, with players having a limited say. However, word of this agreement did reach Southworth and he was unhappy about it. Rovers then reversed their £20 transfer release clause and Southworth still wouldn't sign. Able to receive a record transfer fee between £300 and £400 for a player who had just scored 10 goals the previous season, Rovers took the Everton offer. Blackburn newspapers wrote positively on the move, stating that Southworth was one of the finest centre forwards in English football, sure, but the last 2 seasons he had a bit of a slump in form, and so the move, especially for such a fee, was actually a good one for Blackburn, not Everton. Southworth himself did not go quietly. He wrote in the Blackburn Standard newspaper decrying Rovers and the newspapers for questioning his conduct and attitude, challenging their perception of him as a mercenary and an unsportsmanlike character. He also detailed how, if that was the case, he could have left years ago for much more money, a statement highly believable considering his goal-scoring returns and popularity within the game. He finished by blaming Rovers backtracking over that £20 transfer release clause and calling out those who criticised him, questioning whether or not they would have refused such tempting offers as he had been given before. Rovers gambled on Southworth's skills waning and cashed in on a player who they felt was on the decline, but it was unwise to bet against the Prince of Dribblers. Early in the season, the Everton vs Sunderland game was watched by 27,500 fans, which was 20,000 more than the season average, with Southworth on the score sheet in a 7-1 win. By December, he was on a 6-game scoring streak, and over the festive period he scored 15 of Everton's 22 goals over just 4 matches. Whilst Everton finished 6th, 2 places and 1 point behind his old team Blackburn Rovers, Jack Southworth finished the season with 27 goals in 22 games. He was once again the #1 goal scorer in the league. In just his second season with Everton, Southworth was appointed captain at age 28. He scored a hat-trick against Small Heath, which is now Birmingham City, and would score another hat-trick 2 games later. He had started the season with 8 goals in 8 games, but disaster struck during a benefit match for Preston North End goalkeeper James Traynor. He collided with an opponent during the game at Deepdale on November 19th and his knee again was seriously damaged. His professional football career was over at just 29 years of age. The club tried to send him to specialists, but Southworth refused. He was suspended by the club without wages in 1895, and by April, Southworth was pleading for help due to financial problems. Southworth fell off the footballing radar until August 1900, where he was actually hired as Everton's assistant trainer on £2 a week. Everton kept him on the players' lists until 1903 in the hope of him potentially someday being fit enough to return to football. Sadly, it was not to be. Following his football career, Jack Southworth had his ability as a musician to earn a living. Sadly, a lot of pioneering footballers who helped start professional football seem to either die prematurely or live through financial hardship or poverty. There was one final moment of football for Southworth. On the 23rd of September 1950, he was invited as a guest of honour to a Blackburn Rovers match against Manchester United. He almost didn't attend due to his reluctance to wear a tie, but his wife Jessie persuaded him to go. He once again walked out onto the Blackburn Rovers pitch 57 years after last doing so. He would spend the remainder of his life playing in orchestras, as a musician for hire, playing cricket, snooker, and even winning a bowls championship aged 77. He stayed in Liverpool until he passed away in 1956, age 89. Football's first Wonderkid finished with a career that saw 133 goals in 139 games, 3 England caps with 3 goals, 13 hat-tricks for Blackburn Rovers, and 6 goals in 1 game for Everton, as well as 2 FA Cup wins. If you enjoyed today's video, you might like another one on the channel that you can watch by clicking on the image over here. Thank you for watching today's video, and any likes or subs would be much appreciated. Until the next time, take care.